So let's jump in here. I am Sarah from Homespun Childhood, and here at Homespun Childhood, I share all things curriculum, literacy, reading instruction, and planning, and all the things, right? So today I am going to jump into Beast Academy Science and give you an in-depth look inside this 3A book here. And then I'm also going to show you the next generation science standards on my computer. So if you're wondering what will be taught in future levels of Beast Academy and what might be taught in previous years, you would want to look at the next generation science standards because that is how this is aligned. All right, I have the newly released Beast Academy Science program. They just launched this in July of 2023, and right now the only level available is 3A. 3 stands for third grade, and A is for their first semester. There will be a 3B, so you could complete a full year of third grade science using 3A and 3B. Now, I do not know what their plans are for releasing future editions. In the past, Beast Academy has worked their way up, so they'll likely have 4th grade available for next year and then 5th grade the year after that, and then maybe they'll come in and fill in the lower grades. They recently did this with math where they added in 1A and B, C, and D for math just a couple years ago. So I do not know their plans. I have looked on their website and don't see any additional information. If you know more, feel free to share it in the comments. Now, this program is developed by 2 different authors, and I cannot remember their names, but one of them has worked on the Beast Academy Math, and he is a former math teacher and math team coach and all that, so he's got all the education information and background. And then the other author for the science program is a trained scientist, so she pulls in all the science information, and I will share their bios in the description because I think it's really important to know who is writing the curricula and are they qualified, right? Do they meet what you would like them to be qualified in to write a curriculum? All right, so let's look at this. So the dogs are ringing the doorbell. So let's look at this. I have flagged some of the parts we're going to look through, but we will start at the beginning and go from there. If you are unfamiliar with Beast Academy, up until now, they have been a math-based program. And they have problem-solving based math courses. And their math options you can use either in a workbook style, and they have a math comic and then your math puzzles and practice problems, or you can do it online for math, or you can do a combination. So for the science, it's just, like I said, this workbook, and it's only like the one book until you switch over to 3B. The comics are integrated with the other types of practice pages and labs. So our table of contents here, this first semester, there are 3 main units. And again, these are aligned with the next generation science standards, and I'll show you those in a minute. Unit 1 is on motion. Unit 2 is on weather, and Unit 3 is on survival. And so the different topics that they go through are predictions, evidence, cause and effect, engineering, temperature and precipitation, weather graphs, day length, sun angle, the atmosphere, wind, habits, competition, adaptations, feeding, protection, and cooperation. So each of these chapters are meant to be about a week so that you could complete a full curriculum over the course of a year. If you're a homeschooler, you are probably used to seeing mastery-based science curriculum. If we look at Real Science Odyssey by Pandia Press, or if we look at Blossom and Root Science, those types of programs, they are the entire year on a particular topic. So the animal kingdom or astronomy or plants or whatever it is. There are some other science programs out there for the homeschool world like Science Mom and Nancy Larson that are more spiral based. This is a more spiral-based program because it's based off the next generation science standards. And with those standards, you move through several main topics, and each year you're building on the previous year's information. So you are spiraling and getting more in depth as you increase in the grade levels. And we will look at that over on the computer in a minute. So when you see this and you're like, wow, Sarah, that's a lot of topics to get through in like one semester. Yes and no, because you are moving through a focused unit, but you're doing just one topic per week, and then you add on to that each subsequent year. So then they have this section on how to use the book, and this initial part is available as a sample on their website. So we talk about Beast 3A, we talk about planning, and then they have different activity types throughout. We have the comic section, and that has this little symbol. We have labs, and we have practice pages. And then they have different symbols for the different question types. They have challenge questions, they have discussion questions, they have research questions, and then they have journal questions. And then they talk about the standards here, again, that this is next generation science standards, and they'll cover all the topics for grade 3 in their books. Okay? Then we move into materials. These are all of the materials that you will need divided up by chapter for the entire year. They are, for the most part, household type items, okay? So the labs in here are very hands-on, and they have investigation-based labs. However, they're not using things that might be hard to get. So, you know, it's things like marbles and a feather or a tissue and, you know, a measuring stick, a toy car, a balloon. You also will need a science journal for this. I will be using our School Nest science notebooks to go along with this. They are just lined pages with dot grids on the other side, and you can prep your materials in advance if you like. Then they introduce the different comic characters. So we have the Inventioneer, the Firecracker, the Bookworm. Okay, my son, we have used Beast Academy for math for a couple years now, and he loves it. He loves the comics, and so I am really excited about that aspect of this. Then we move into Unit 1 on motion. So we will look through a couple different units and chapters here. So each unit is set up the same way. We have this kind of header section here where we go over the different chapters. So again, prediction, evidence, cause and effect, engineering. We talk about the chapter overview. Over here, you have your introduction, your making predictions, your target lab, watch and learn, summary, and then it gives you the page numbers for the back of the book for hints for some of the questions, and then the answers. There is not a teacher guide for this program. Everything is integrated into the one book. There's not a separate lab book. It's just this one book. So we have this kind of little opening on predictions and some factual information. Then we move into the comic section. And then we have a target lab. So it says, like the little monsters in the makerspace, you'll try to land a ball in a cup. How well do you predict where the marble will bounce? So we have our kind of idea about making predictions, which is based off of the chapter 1 predictions. We have the directions, we have some tips, we have a place to make some observations, some practice questions, some extensions, journal prompt down here. It says plan your own chain reaction contraption in your science journal or try to build one. We have watch and learn. Okay, making predictions, and then some more questions down here. And then every chapter ends with a little summary here about the topic and connecting it to real life. Now, this book is about $50 for, I think it's $48 for 3A. So the program for the entire year would be about $100. That is a little bit pricey for a program if you plan on reusing it. That said, this would be fairly easy to, you know, not write in the book. You pull out your science journal and answer the questions in here. Okay, the pages are also perforated if you want to make a copy of them for your own student, your own personal use. And then we're moving into the next chapter here. So let's scoot ahead a little bit, and I want to show you this other part that's in here that I think is pretty cool. So spread throughout the book, they have different little sections. And here is one called Science Skill, Keeping Time. So this is teaching a science skill about how to use a stopwatch and track time and how to record it. This is a skill that we need in a lot of different science experiments. So they talk about how to read the times and then practice writing the times. And then there's a little investigation about cause and effect, and they continue through. One of the things that we have seen in the next generation science standards and with science instruction in general is this idea of having investigations. There is a challenge, there is a prompt, and our students have to use their science skills and knowledge to figure it out. So I'm glad to see that in here. Let's move up a little bit and see this section on journaling. So here's a page about some of their engineering stuff. This is on Chapter 4 Engineering. And we're talking about designing a problem. There's a research prompt down here. Look at pendulums others have made to get ideas of how you'll make yours. Search for science pendulums and pendulum labs to view images and videos of other pendulums. I like that they give you searchable keywords here so you know what to put into your search engine when you are doing your research. Then we have a little bit of an engineering notebook here. And one of the things that they add to the book kind of throughout are some of these examples of how you might draw this or draw something in your science notebook. And I love that it's very kid-friendly and feels like a good example or a good model for your child. Maybe they're not sure what they're supposed to do, so they could kind of look at this and get an idea and then do their own. And we have an example of a discussion question down here. What do you like best about Grog's and Lizzie's designs? What are some things you would change about their designs? So I like that they have varied questions throughout the book, different ways to, think and reflect on the learning. Then let's move into a unit on weather. This is Unit 2, Weather, Chapter 5. The chapter numbers are in order, so it doesn't restart with each unit. There's not chapter 1. It just goes all the way through the program. Okay, so we have our little kind of introduction here. We have the terms, the vocabulary terms are in bold, so weather, temperature, and precipitation. We have some instruction over here about temperature, and then a journal prompt. What is the outdoor temperature where you are right now? How does it feel? And some practice questions. Okay. They have some charts in here for reading. Dog, stop. What are you eating? Another research question over here, and then a place to record information. Talk about temperatures in the United States. I love that there are a variety of both pictures and information graphics, and we're learning how to use all these different text features. And then a little lab. Precipitation, here's our vocabulary, is a liquid or frozen water that falls from the sky to the ground. Okay. Talking about floods and a flood demonstration. Little hands-on project there. And if we flip forward to chapter 12, we are now in the survival unit. This is on competition. And so there's a little prompt question here. Have you ever been in a competition? Maybe you have been in a race, an art contest, or the world championship of thumb wrestling. In the wild, living things compete too. Plants and animals aren't competing for fame or prizes. They are competing to survive. And then it talks about the hummingbirds right here. So we're setting ourselves up for the chapter. We also down here have a little key that's going to tell us that we're going to have a game, we're going to have a comic, and some enrichment in this chapter. I love that there are games in here. We talk about resources, so this is kind of like our text-based learning and then practice based off of that learning over there. We move into the comic. And then they have this game section, territory puzzles. If you are familiar with Beast Academy math, and especially the math workbook, these puzzles are really similar. So if you have a child who really has enjoyed Beast Academy for math, they will likely enjoy this as well. We love these little puzzles in our house and little games. So they have a territory puzzle here. This is one of their games. They have their practice. Then they have your turn to play. And the starred ones are like the enrichment, the challenge ones. And they do include hints for those in the back of the book. Then they go into their instruction on fierce competition. We have example animals. We have discussion question. There's some instruction here about the rainforest. I really like that the instructional content in here and the questions feel appropriate for a third grader. Now, some programs out there, I feel like homeschoolers look at and they're like, wow, this is too easy or whatever. This to me feels appropriate for third grade. If you have a child who is fluently reading, they are going to be able to read this material and kind of work through this fairly independently. Now, I say that, however, it is important that we are partnering with our children still and, doing some of the instruction alongside them at this grade level. Could you use this program for a younger child? Yes. You could. You would need to make some modifications to it and likely need to partner with them for the reading and writing components. We have discussion questions. We have another game here, the canopy game. We have some discussion about supply and demand. Again, we're defining our vocabulary terms up here. competition ups and downs, some practice questions, and then we move into the next chapter. At the end of our book, there is a little research project here. This is the only research project in 3A. I'm guessing there's another research project towards the end of 3B. And so it talks about symbiosis and then practice with a little example down here, okay? Writing the sentences and answering the question. And I think this is great that they include these examples. And then we have the research questions, and it tells you search for Pacific cleaner shrimp and moray eel symbiosis. And then you're gonna, do some little research and write it up. If you're using a writing program like Write by Number or IEW, you could very easily pull in those strategies to do your writing in here. We know from research that when we can integrate reading and writing with the content areas, that children have better retention of their learning. And then that's the end. We move into the hints and the strategies. Okay, and then your answer key back here. The one thing that I wish this book had, and it doesn't have, is the vocabulary terms, because that would be really nice to have, kind of in the back, all the different vocabulary terms, or, at the beginning of each chapter, a section that has, your list of vocabulary words and the definitions so that you could incorporate that into your vocabulary instruction or your word study. As it is, you'll have to kind of go through and pull those out if you want to do that. They are at least bolded, but it'd be easier if they were kind of up front and out in the open for you. Now, this program is not as involved as some of the other programs are out there. However, I feel like it does a nice job of combining the explicit instruction with some reading and writing and some hands-on work and lab work. I like that it includes a variety of types of questions and prompts for the student to show what they're learning. We want children to need to produce something at the end of learning to not only demonstrate learning, but to help it stick better. If you have read the book, Make It Stick, it talks a lot about how people learn things, and we know that if we're given these informal quizzes at the end of learning information, that by having to answer questions about the topic, it helps us remember it better. So, whether you're doing that Charlotte Mason style with narration, or if you're doing it more traditional style with, writing down questions like in here with the practice stuff, that will help it stick. And so you can adapt this if you are more of a Waldorf style homeschooler. You can add in some main lesson book pages. If you're more Charlotte Mason style, you can incorporate narration. Make this your own. The material is all here for you. And I really love the simplicity of having everything in one book. All right, now we're going to switch gears, and I'm going to flip on my computer, and we're going to look at the next generation science standards to see where this might be going in the future and what topics they might have already covered. Let's look at the next generation science standards. So if you're curious about how these standards were developed and who developed them, you can just search next generation science standards, NGSS, and come over here and look up all of that information, developing the standards. However, for today, we're just going to look at the actual standards. So if you wanted to download this yourselves, you can click on the links in the description, or from the website, you would come to read the standards, and you could search for them this way or download the documents. We're going to just go ahead and look at the downloaded documents. So before I jump into the standards broken down by grade level, I want to show you the standards by their disciplinary area. So the next generation science standards are broken into several different big topics, different areas of science. So we have life sciences. We have lots of life science here. The different components of life science are molecules to organisms, structures and processes, ecosystems, heredity, biological evolution. And then we move into the Earth and space science domain. We have Earth's place in the universe. We have Earth's systems, and all of these are broken up into substandards. We have Earth and human activity, and then we move into the physical science domain with matter and its interactions, motion and stability, energy, waves and their applications in technology. And then we move into the final domain, which is engineering, technology, and the application of science. And the main one here is going to be engineering design. and that's it. So those are the main domains of the science world. And so then they take those domains and they divide them into standards and then substandards. And those are then further divided by, okay, are we looking at doing those in the primary elementary years, K2, grades 3-5, grades 6-8, grades 9-12. And then they break them down even farther into year-by-year grades. So let's put that away and let's look at the actual standards over here. The reason we are looking at this is because Beast Academy science is based off of the next generation science standards. And so if we come down here to 3rd grade storyline in our table of contents for the science standards, we see motion and stability, we have forces and interactions, molecules to organisms, structures and processes, ecosystems, interaction, energy dynamics, heredity, inheritance and variation of traits, biological evolution, unity and diversity, earth systems, and earth and human activity. So let's go ahead and scroll down and look at these. So if you're curious as to what might be in future years of Beast Academy's science, you can come down here and look at the different standards. So right now we are in K, kindergarten, physical science, and then 2, motions and stability, forces and interactions. We have the core ideas over here, the DCI, the disciplinary core ideas. Those are the different science domains. We have our practices and we have our concepts. And then up here we have clarification statements with examples. So let's come down to 3rd grade. Boop, boop, ba-doo. There's 2nd grade. 3rd grade. Okay, so this is like a summary of 3rd grade, and then we come into the actual standards. So motion and stability, forces and interaction. Here is our disciplinary core idea down here. Each force acts on one particular object, blah, 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 types of interactions. And then we have what we want the students to do. Students who demonstrate understanding can plan and conduct an investigation to provide evidence of the effects of balanced and unbalanced forces on the motion of an object. Then we have examples down here. So this was included in the Beast Academy 3A. Make observations and or measurements of an object's motion, provide evidence, ask questions to determine the relationship, ask questions to determine cause and effect relationship of electric and magnetic interactions between 2 objects with not in contact with each other, define a simple design problem that can be solved by applying scientific ideas about magnets. Now, Beast Academy 3 does not go into all of these little sub things here. We did not have magnets in 3A. Maybe that's in 3B. I'm not sure. From molecules to organisms, ecosystems and their interaction. Okay, so if you're curious as to what might be in 3B and what might be in future releases from Beast Academy for Science, looking at the next generation science standards is a nice way to figure that out. These standards are based off of the idea that we're going to spiral information from kindergarten all the way through high school. We're going to keep hitting those main domains, those core disciplinary areas of science, and each year it's going to get a little bit more in depth. We're going to add a little bit more to it. And that follows the same principles of kind of like how the brain learns, and that is that we connect new information to previous information, and so they're going to just keep on spiraling all the way up. And that is a wrap up on looking at Beast Academy. If you found this video helpful, please go ahead and like it and subscribe. I really appreciate your support here on YouTube, and I will see you around the interwebs.